In today's video, we're transferring a Monstera dubia from a normal moss pole to a grow vertical moss pole with plastic backing. So stay tuned. Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. You guys know I love growing aeroids to maturity indoors, and when it comes to growing plants to maturity, there's a few factors that are really important. First and foremost, light. You've got to have enough light to grow your plants to maturity. Large leaves need a lot of light. And then of course there's your care approach. You've got to be consistent and you obviously need to give your plants a little bit of time to mature as well. But there's one other thing that really impacts the way that your plant can mature, and that's the type of support that you give your plants. In nature, these are semi-epiphytes, so that means that they start on the forest floor. Once they hit a tree, they start climbing up that tree, and that really signalizes to the plant that, hey, it's time to mature. As it climbs up the tree, it gets access to more light and it starts giving you these nice large leaves. Well, same principle applied indoors. I just use a moss pole instead of a tree. Now, the moss pole has some additional benefits. If I keep the moss moist and provide sufficient nutrients, the moss is also a growing medium. So essentially, the entire moss pole is a vertical extension of your pot. Hence, I'm using quite small pots. But moss poles come with certain limitations. The limitation is really the space. The more space you can give your plants for roots, the bigger the root system will be, the more potential the plant has to actually mature if you give it enough light. Now, I usually use 6 centimeter diameter moss poles, and so far I haven't really noticed them being an issue for any of my plants or them being too small. But my plants keep getting bigger and bigger, so I do also need to consider making my moss poles a little bit bigger. The second thing is the normal moss poles that I use are open, so they just mesh with moss inside. That also means that roots can grow into the moss pole, but also back out of the moss pole again, and then essentially they're just aerial roots. The whole idea is that I want the roots to turn into water roots by being grown inside the moss, so inside the growing medium. That's a little bit of background. So let's apply that to my Monstera dubia. My Monstera dubia always had a larger moss pole than just the 6 centimeters anyway. It was a kind of like a D-shaped moss pole, and it would approximately fit twice as much moss as my normal moss pole. So it already had a larger moss pole to start off with. And the main reason for that is because at the beginning, when Monstera dubia is still juvenile, it's a shingling plant. So I wanted it to be on a flat moss pole rather than it being around and then the leaves curling around the moss pole. However, 3 months ago, I noticed that my Monstera dubia is just not increasing in leaf size anymore. If anything, it was actually decreasing in leaf size. Well, that could have also been due to winter, but I suppose at some stage, it also just reaches the limit of how much it can mature, given the conditions, given the support, given the amount of roots it can grow, and so on. So I thought it would be a good idea to convert my Monstera dubia to a different type of moss pole, a grow vertical pole. Grow Vertical is a local company over here, and I've spoken heaps about these poles in the past already. Basically, they have mesh at the front and a plastic backing at the back. The only downside to these poles is, well, they're made from plastic. I don't necessarily appreciate the look of plastic all around my apartment, but in this instance, I figured let's go for functionality over looks and see if the Grow Vertical moss pole is the solution for my Monstera dubia to continuously increase. Well, I suppose you are seeing the results over here already, but before we analyze the results, let's have a look at what happened 3 months ago. The reason I need to repot this is because of this. Now, I usually love giving my plants a small pot, so this is just a 20 centimeter pot, but I really underestimated how ferociously this Monstera dubia is rooting and how thick these roots are. Now, I want to capitalize on those roots because a large root system means that this plant has more potential to mature, and I'm not really happy with the progress that the plant has made from here upwards. So basically, since it's reached its extension, it actually decreased in leaf size a little bit, which I believe is mainly due to winter, but it could also be that this plant just needs more room for growth, right? More room for roots. Now, the moss pole is a vertical extension of the pot, so there is still some room left, but I want to give it more space, and I really want to make sure that these juicy roots that are coming out over here are being given an opportunity to be funneled down into the pot. Normally with my moss poles, you know, the round ones, kind of the roots kind of like just crawl along the surface of the moss pole sometimes. Obviously there's also roots on the inside, but some come out on the outside and then just kind of crawl down the moss pole. But these ones are kind of too thick, and I kind of mainly noticed it with Monsteras, like the Deliciosa does the same. The roots just go in all directions. They grow crazy aerial roots, and I want to kind of make the best out of those. So today I'm going to convert my normal moss pole. I hope you can see me, I'm here. So today in this video I'm going to repot this plant, I'm going to chop it, and I'm going to convert this pole into a Grow Vertical pole. So Tim from Grow Vertical, who owns the company, reached out to me and said, hey, you should really try one of our I think they're called long fatty. You should try one of those moss poles and see if that will make your dubia continue to maturing. Now, I did not pay for this. Tim sent these to me for free so I can test it and talk about it. So I'm going to be really honest with you guys about what I like and what I don't like about these poles. Now, I've been using them for years now already, so I'm obviously a fan. Otherwise, I won't continue using them. And the main benefit of these Grow Vertical poles is that the plastic backing, so this is the plastic backing, then you're going to have mesh at the front. That plastic backing is going to redirect the roots into the pot, right? So they're not going to stick out in all directions. They're all going to be funneled into the pot, meaning that this root system is going to just become bigger and bigger and bigger. Also, because it's a plastic backing, the surface area of the moss pole is reduced, meaning that it should retain moisture for much longer. Unfortunately, this larger size is only available in black and see-through, and not my beautiful green recycled one that I really like, but that's totally fine. The see-through is actually going to be really good because we're going to get to spy on the roots later on. Another thing that I really like about these poles is that you're pretty flexible. You can first of all cut it. If you don't like this height, you can cut it. But also you get this mesh with it. So basically you just need to cable tie these together. And you can also cut the width of the mesh, right? So as you cut the mesh to be smaller, the plastic stays the same. So you just end up having a deeper pole that holds more substrate. Or if you keep the mesh as long or as wide as it is right now, then the moss pole is rather a little bit more flat, doesn't fit quite as much substrate, right? So you have flexibility. You can make them as deep or as flat, as wide or as narrow as you like. You can customize their height as well. All you need is like a cutter. I don't have 100% of a plan. I think I'm just going to kind of wing it and try as we go. But before we get started, Grow Vertical has also provided me with a discount code for you guys. So you can check out their website. I'll link it in the description. And at checkout, just apply the coupon Sydney Plant Guy, all one word, and you will get 10% off your order. Let's get right into it. I'm excited. Okay, I've got the feeling that this video is going to be one of these pure chaos videos again. I actually recorded one video a couple of weeks ago. It was so incredibly chaotic. I don't think you'll ever get to see it. But sometimes when I repot these things, you know, I mean, if I just do my regular chop and extend that I do all the time, like I'm pretty good at that and I don't have too many issues with that. Everything kind of goes exactly as expected. But when I try something new, like I don't have it all figured out, you know, I just wing it as we go. Like I don't overthink it. Usually I like to chop the stem of the plant the day before I actually then chop the pole, because I like for this cut to dry out a little bit before I pot it up. So I won't pot this up immediately. I'll actually pot this up later. So I'll just park this here. I can see you guys now and you can see me. Normally with my chop and extend, I like to use the top, right? But today I'm actually going to continue using the bottom because, well, first of all, I wanted these larger leaves. And second of all, I want to capitalize on this, like these super juicy roots. Can you see these? Like these juicy roots, like I want to capitalize on those. I want to give those a new home. Now, I haven't thought this through. Okay, I have an idea. Hear me out. It could be genius, it could be stupid. We'll find out. Trial and error. we don't try, we will never find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a little hook. Good news, bad news. So my phone was overheating because you're right in the window, and the last 20 minutes of footage just dropped off. But good news is that whatever I've done in those 20 minutes really worked. So let me just maybe recap what I've done. So I kind of just built a little hook for this moss pole so I can hook it to my coat hanger because I needed to find a way to take off the back part of the mesh, fiddle these roots out of here, but keep the top part of the mesh, right? I can't remove the full pole from this, I can't remove the full plant from the pole. Like, I can't then reattach it to something else later. It's too late for that. So what I've really done is I just chopped the mesh here and here, and then I chopped it into little sections as well, and then just carefully, basically just peeled these off, trying to not disturb the roots. And this is the end result that I've got. So I've got the moss pole over here. So at the front, I just kept the mesh. And at the back, I now have an open, exposed moss pole. And you can see all of these super nice, juicy roots. Look at these roots. Now, attach the grow vertical instead. Let me come a bit closer so you can see this a little bit better, maybe. Now, I want this to go to the end. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. I actually kept the bottom bit of the mesh on, just here, just for structural integrity. So I only removed the mesh till here, but I'm gonna attach the plastic all the way. All right, so it's gonna go to here. All right, so I'm just gonna zip tie one side to it first. I'll speed that up as well. I'm just going to do like every second cable tie. So there's holes in this plastic sheet. I'm just going to do like every second one. Okay, so now all of these roots are going to go into the pod. This, I just need to see. Perfect. Good, I like this. So now I just got to close it on the other side. Trust me, the first one is the hardest. Once you've got one, guys, I told you it's going to be a chaotic video. Watch me put my microphone down and I'm not going to pick it up for the next 20 minutes. So voice over it is. Basically, over here I'm trying to fit a garden stake through the grow vertical pole just to give it extra stability when I put the extension on later. I then filled a little bit of gaps with more moss because the plastic was a little bit larger than the pieces of mesh I used to have in the back. So just fill those with moss and then zip tie it all together. That little construction, like hanging it on my coat hanger, was honestly an absolute lifesaver when doing this by yourself, but I recommend you just get a friend to help you with this if you do it. See the microphone lying over there? Yep, it's not picking up any sound. Alright, once I'm done with the bottom part and I'm happy with that grow vertical pole and it's all secure, I put it in a 25 centimeter pot. I purposely chose a pot that is slightly larger than my normal 20 centimeter pot to give the roots more room to grow. And then I top it up with my normal aeroid mix as always. Yep, and I keep doing that and more and more. Wow. Alright, then I make sure that the mesh for the extension matches the same size of the mesh that I currently use. I think it was just 9 squares, so just about 10 centimeters. And then I start filling it with moss and I keep going hole by hole, putting in zip ties to slowly start closing that extension to it. I secured the extension to the existing pole just by overlapping it. I cut off the growth point because obviously the growth point is with the top part, which I still haven't done anything with. I'm still letting the cut dry out. So this is going to reshoot. Given the size of the root system, I mean, you have seen the size of the root system this plant has. Given the size of the root system, I'm actually expecting it to potentially double shoot. So maybe the 2 newest nodes are going to give me a new shoot, and then I have 2 plants growing on here. At least that's what I'm hoping for. If it's just one, then it's also totally fine. Alrighty, And here's the end result. That was definitely a super chaotic video. I'm so sorry if it was bad. Wow, that video was such a mess. Alright, so let's have a look. What happened over those 3 months? Also, let's quickly address, I've done something very different this time around to my normal process. I actually took the bottom part, so this down below, that is the bottom part of my previous pole. Normally, I take the top part because that's the more mature part. I pot that back up and then I keep extending that one. In this instance, I chose to go with the bottom part because the bottom part was the one that had the larger leaves, because those were the ones that grew over summer. And then the top part didn't even reach the top of the moss pole yet. So if I would have kept the top part, it didn't really have enough of a root system within the moss pole to give it its best chances to continue to mature. So I figured the bottom part with a very established root system within the pot with its large leaves and an established root system within the existing moss pole would give me the best chances to see this plant continue to mature again. That's also why you see some of these leaves getting a little bit brown around the edges. That's just because they're quite old. Normally, these leaves would have not been here anymore. If I would have continued with the top part, then this part would be the top, if you know what I mean. So these would have actually already been passed on to somebody else. So that's, I'm assuming, why I have a little bit of browning on here. Plus, of course, it went through a bit of shock as well, given the full-on chop and moss pole reconfiguration and so on. But that's despite the point. I just really want to use that bottom part of my plant to fuel more amazing growth at the top. And then, you know, eventually I'll chop it and I'll re-extend it and so on. So I'm not too worried about these leaves down here. I just want these leaves to provide the top part of the plant with its best chances. And exactly what I wanted happened. It reshot in 2 spots. So the 2 top nodes both had a new growth point. So I have one vine over here and I have one vine over here, basically doubling the impact of this plant right now. Before it was one vine going up, and that's why it also looks a little bit empty, like not empty, but you know what I mean? Essentially now the moss pole will be twice as full. Now technically, when it splits into shoots, there is the risk that, well, the plant is now dividing its energy across 2 shoots rather than just one, so the chances of both of these shoots maturing is lower. That is almost eliminated because we're basically growing it on a moss pole and every node creates their own root system. So it's not like these 2 vines at the top need to share the root system from down below. Each node has its own root system already. So I think that's why both shoots seem to be maturing really, really well, really, really fast. Now, it took a long time until the growth points actually started growing a new leaf. I believe I only saw the first leaf at the beginning of December, so almost 2 months into the journey that it started giving me its first leaf. But since then, it started growing new leaves really, really rapidly. Between the 2 vines, I now almost get a leaf every week, and they're starting to mature really quickly and starting to get really nice fenestrations and really good size really quickly as well. This leaf over here is still super floppy, so it's going to inflate heaps more. So I reckon this leaf is going to outsize these leaves at the bottom already within just the 3rd leaf after its chop. So that's exactly what I wanted. And the same on this side. There's another one coming here. So now I already have, that's already the 6th leaf pushing out since the beginning of December. So at the beginning, well, the plant was focusing on building a root system. That's why it didn't give me new growth straight away. But once the root system was established, now there's absolutely no holding it back. So I'm very, very happy that I have made that decision to switch the poles around. Now, I just spoke about root system. That is really the main reason why I was using the grow vertical pole. I want to give the plant more room for roots. So let's check out the root system. Well, first of all, let me take this out of its planter. So you can see that there are some really, really juicy roots that have grown out of the pot into the planter. It's one of these beautiful pot-planter combinations where the planter, I got that from Bunnings by the way, fits the pot perfectly. So the pot just hovers. So if I water this and any excess water drains from the moss pole into the pot and then into the planter, it just accumulates at the bottom of the planter, but the pot is not sitting in it. So I don't need to worry about overwatering, but I'm basically doing hydroponics here. Roots are attracted to water, so if there's water accumulating at the bottom of the bucket, the roots will grow into that. Not ideal, I'd rather have the root inside the pot, but honestly, it is so easy. Actually, this is the first time, or like, I mean, just before I started filming it, it was the first time I even picked up this pole in 3 months. I did not take it out of the planter. I have not moved it away from its spot. It just sat there. It's usually located, you can probably just see that Epipremnum pinnatum over there. It's located right next to it. So really, really close to the window. It does get a lot of light. Otherwise, it wouldn't mature. But yeah, really carefree. And what I also have to say is that Grow Vertical moss pole has made a huge difference in the watering frequency. I water this probably only half the amount of times I water my normal moss poles because it just keeps moist so much longer. So let's have a look at the back. I don't know if you can really see that well from where you are right now, but I'll include some close-ups as well. You can really see that throughout the entire moss pole, there are so many little roots that have pushed their way into this support. So you can really see how crazy the root system, I need to water that by the way, but you can really see how crazy this root system within the moss pole is. And it hasn't even really grown really large chunky roots. I'm expecting the large chunky roots from the new growth points to grow really soon. For now, these are almost just like small anchoring roots, but they're still turned into water roots because they have access to the moist moss, right? So all of these roots can absorb water and nutrients. So I'm not surprised that this plant has so much energy and so much potential to actually mature. So really, really great. These ones are the long fatty, I think that's what these Grow Verticals are called, and I basically use 2 on top of each other, and they're just connected through cable ties over here. So you can see kind of the overlap. I'll make quite a large overlap over here just to give it security, but also with that large of an overlap, it gave me the right height. Otherwise it would have been way too tall. So overall, this was a great success. I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. And I'm going to replicate the exact same with my mature Adansonii because my mature Adansonii is about to reach the top of its moss pole. And let me quickly show you the mess that is the moss pole at the moment. All right, I think you can just see that. So over here, the moss pole worked perfectly fine when this plant was more juvenile, but now that it's mature, can you just see the amount of roots that are growing out of this moss pole? If I would have a plastic backing over here, all of these roots would be channeled back into the pot and this plant would be able to mature even further. So it is going to reach the top of its moss pole very soon, and then I'm going to convert this into a Grow Vertical moss pole as well. And I will for sure take you along. All right, I'll wrap it up over here. If you'd like to learn more about the Grow Vertical moss poles, I will link a video over here somewhere where I compare my normal moss poles to the Grow Vertical moss poles and to any other support that I have used in the past. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye.